Hello everyone, my name is Anthony Cofield, and today in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to create a rock, paper, scissors game. The logic of the game is basically going to go like this. We're going to have the number 1, the number 2, and the number 3, and we are going to basically have the computer call on these numbers at random. We're going to have the number 1 assigned to a picture, in this case a picture of a rock. The number 2 is going to be a picture of paper. And the number 3 is going to be a picture of scissors. And we're basically going to have these pictures stacked up on top of one another. And then we're going to duplicate them. So basically we're going to have, it's going to look something like this. We're going to have the 3 pictures stacked on top of one another in one sort of section here. We're going to go ahead and duplicate that stack of papers, and also we're going to put this on this side. And what we're basically doing here is we're basically creating the player entry and the computer entry. And we are going to assign, as we're assigning these pictures a number, the computer is basically going to draw a random number, and given that picture that's assigned to that number, it's going to display it right here. Using some buttons, we're going to have it put down here. We're going to have a button of a rock, a button of paper and scissors, and we're going to click on these buttons to kind of determine the submission that the player wants to pick. And the rock, paper, and scissors pictures are going to be displayed up here depending on which one is being clicked. At the same time as we're doing that, we're going to have 3 separate counters. I don't know if you can see that down here, but you're going to have a wins counter, a losses counter, and a ties counter down there. And other than that, that's basically going to be our program. This is how it's going to work. So as we click on the button, if we win, say, for example, we're going to have a label right here. I forgot to add. We'll have a label here that says player wins. And the wins counter is going to be updated with 1. If I hit it again and the player wins again, the wins counter is going to be updated to 2. Same thing with the losses and the ties. They're all going to count. And as each submission goes, they're each going to increase by 1. And in the code, we'll get into this. You'll get to see hands-on, what this is going to look like. So without further ado, I'm going to boot up my computer and fire up Visual Studio, and we'll get started.
Okay, so I now have Visual Studio opened up on my computer, and opened up I have the project of the, basically the project we're going to create. It's the rock, paper, scissors game, and here's kind of that concept I was explaining to you on the whiteboard. We have these two sets of 3 pictures right here. There's 3 pictures and 3 pictures. They're actually stacked on top of one another. So we have the picture of the rock, picture of the paper, and the picture of the scissors, and over here it's duplicated, the same thing. Basically, if you have any trouble, basically when you're putting these pictures in, stacking them up, there's this feature. If you right click on the picture you want to actually change, you can select this feature here, right click and bring to front or send it back. It'll kind of do accordingly what you might need to kind of get those pictures stacked up on top of one another. As far as naming, for the naming conventions, it's going to be PIC rock on this side, PIC paper, PIC scissors. You're going to want to have PIC comp rock on this side, PIC comp paper, and PIC comp scissors, sorry. After that, it's LBL player down here. Then you're going to have LBL computer. Let me go ahead and actually reline these. This is going to be our referee, LBL ref. This is going to be our BTN rock. This is going to be the BTN paper. And here's, we're going to call this BTN scissors. We're going to have BTN reset, BTN exit, LBL random num, LBL wins, LBL losses, and LBL ties. So let's go ahead onto the code section. The first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to create three variables, global variables here. These are going to be global. Wins as an integer, losses and ties, all integers, and we're going to initialize those to 0. The next thing we're going to want to do after that is we're going to want to double click on the form. We're going to want to add some code into the form1 load sub. The code for that, basically what you're going to want is this. This is the code. We're going to actually, when we click on the, when we first start the program, we basically want these pictures and these pictures and these two labels to be invisible. And basically we're setting the visible property on all those elements to false for the form1 load. It's pretty simple there. We just want it to be, we just don't want to see it. After that, we can go ahead and click on the rock button, and the code for the rock button here is going to, I'll show you what that is. And basically, what we're saying is when we hit the rock button, we're going to want the picture of the rock to be displayed. We're going to want to set that visible to property to true. And we're going to want the LBL player label and the LBL computer label. We're going to want those both true. After that, we're going to want to declare a variable. We're going to call it R&D for random, and we're going to declare it as a new random. After that, you're going to want to declare a variable comp as an integer. And we're basically going to set the comp as a random. It's going to select between basically 1 and 3. We have to add this +1 right here, basically to compensate for the basically 0 being counted as a value. So that's why there's a +1 there. And then we're basically putting that comp variable inside this LBL random number, because we're just going to want to see in the corner here what number was selected, so we can better see if the program is working correctly or not. So now for the if statements, if comp is equal to 1, then comp is rock, and rock is going to be true. It's going to be visible. After that, we're going to want to set this the label inside the text. It's going to be a tie, because rock is rock, and that's a tie. And since it's a tie, we're going to want that label, that text, that ties, that counter, that's going to be incremented by 1. And we're going to basically want to store that inside that ties label. We're going to want this ties variable to increment and be stored inside the ties label. After that, we'll have the situation of comp is equal to 2. Then PIC comp scissors is basically going to be displayed, the picture. And then in this situation, the ref would say that the player wins. And then since it's a win, we're going to increment that by 1 and basically store it inside the wins label. After that, we have the number 3, which would be paper. And in that sense, the player would lose, and then we're going to update the loses counter +1 and store that inside the label. The next thing we're going to want to do is click on the paper button, and I can show you the code. It's basically the same there. You can basically copy and paste it into the button. This portion right here, you can go ahead and copy and actually paste that. The only thing we're going to want to change is obviously the rock. We don't need to be visible anymore. We actually want the paper to be visible. So we'll set that to false and set this one to true. Right here, we'll set that to true. After that, you can keep this random number code the same. And you're just going to want to change the situations. Obviously, if comp is equal to 1, the player would win, since number 1 is rock. If comp is equal to 2, the player would lose, since number 2 is scissors. And if comp is equal to 3, it would be a tie, because it's paper, and that would be the selection there. And then we would just be incrementing each appropriate counter. If it's a win, wins +1, throw it in the label. And if it's a loss, loss +1, throw it in the label, etc. The next thing we're going to want to do after that is go on to the scissors portion. And it's basically going to be like the same code. We're just going to want to change a couple things on this as well. We're going to want the scissors picture to be set to true. We can keep the labels the same on the bottom here to true. We can keep the random number code the same. The only difference is if comp is equal to rock number 1, then the player lost, and then the appropriate counter would increment. If comp is equal to 2, then it's a tie. That appropriate counter would increment. If comp is equal to 3, then the player wins, and then that counter is incremented by 1. That appropriate counter is incremented by 1, and the appropriate pictures are set. If it's 1, then it's rock. If it's 2, then in this case it's scissors, and if it's 3, it's paper. Okay, so one of the last couple things we're going to want to do is code in the reset button. The reset button, we're just going to clear the labels. I don't have the pictures hide, which I probably should have. I should probably put the pictures into hide. You can go ahead and actually put that in. You would just basically set the PIC pictures. You would set those back to false, the visible property. But for now, for this tutorial, I'm just going to clear the labels. And for the exit button, you can go ahead and double click on that. You might already know this. You're just going to type in me.close with 2 parentheses, and that closes the form. And now this should load when we go ahead and run it. Okay, it looks like the program loads up okay. Let's go ahead, and I'm going to go ahead and choose rock. And it looks like it's a tie. It looks like the computer generated the number 1. The number 1 is rock, and I chose rock, so that it's a tie, basically, and it's being displayed correctly here on this referee label. And the ties counter is incremented by 1, just as we coded. Let's go ahead and try paper. It looks like the player wins in this situation. It looks like it's stuck with the number 1 again, and it incremented the wins counter by 1. Looks like it's a tie again, and now it looks like, okay, I hit it one more time, and the player looks like it lost. The losses counter increments by 1. It's being displayed appropriately. The player wins once again, and it looks like that whole portion's working. That's basically the game here. Let's see if the reset button works. I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and it looks like the program cleared out the labels correctly like we wanted. And let's see if the exit button works, and it looks like it closes. Alright, that's basically the program. I hope this tutorial was helpful. I hope the program works for you. And that's basically it. Thanks for watching.